Now, I know you've experienced a situation where two jets came within feet of colliding. Would you mind briefly sharing that story with us?
Alan, there's an old saying in air traffic control about hazardous air traffic control situations. There are those controllers who have had hazardous air traffic control situations, and there are those who have not had hazardous air traffic control situations yet. I am one of the ones who have had that unfortunate occurrence. In fact, I love to tell the story whenever I do a presentation about one of those situations where I was a young air traffic controller. I was in position, working in the control tower, F-15 fighter, 5-mile final. I scanned my runway, looking for hazards. When I found it, a fly, a common household everyday fly that had taken up a holding pattern right over my lunch in the tower cab. Well, I couldn't go for that now. So I took an aggressive stance, I acquired the target, and as I leaned back to smack it, my handset, little handset that is attached to my headphones, well, it got pinched, the press to talk button depressed in. So unbeknownst to me, I had a live microphone. So as I leaned forward to swat at the fly, I said in a very loud, clear, audible voice, "Watch me kill this son of a bitch." And the pilot, of course, he heard that, thought I was referring to him, and decided that he didn't want to land there at the airport after all, and went on his merry way. He was only doing a practice approach at our airport anyway. So I got in a little bit of trouble over that one, but not anything dire by any stretch. I did, however, have a situation when I first got into air traffic control. I'd been through the school. Again, it was 5 months of school. I got to my first duty station at Scott Air Force Base, which was about 20 miles east of St. Louis, Missouri. I guess it took about a year, I would say, of on-the-job training where I actually had to work with another controller plugged in. He would listen to me as I would make all the calls and separate and sequence, and at whatever point he just felt like I was ready to work on my own, he would put me up for certification, and then the standardization and evaluation inspector would come in and watch me in position and certify me. So I'd only been what we call certified rated, I should say, for a couple weeks. Position I was working what we call local, which for pilots would know this controller as tower. Tower is responsible for clearing people to land and take off. They own the runway, as opposed to the ground controller, which handles all the ground aircraft taxi movements and vehicle movements and whatnot. So this particular day, I've been rated for a couple weeks. I'm feeling good about myself, proud that I have accomplished something that not too many people have. I'm a rated air traffic controller. I have a Cessna 152 VFR coming into the pattern. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the control tower airspace configuration, at least here in the States, and it's probably the same over in Europe, the tower owns 5 miles of airspace, basically from the center of the runway outward 5 miles up to 2,500 feet. That's the airspace you own. So I have a civilian pilot flying a small little high-wing aircraft into land. Learjet, what we call cocktail hauler on final, coming in to do a practice approach. And he's probably 10 miles out at this point. The Cessna is probably about 3 miles from landing. The Cessna's doing 90 knots. The Learjet's doing around 140 knots on final. So I look up at my Cessna. He checks in with me. I tell him, normally we have reporting points in the control tower. Normally I would tell my next call to the pilot would be to, Cessna 123, report left base. Use my reporting points. That way they're kind of like tripwires. So I have an opportunity to look around, make sure the runway's clear, don't have anybody in the guy's way, and then when he reports base, I would give him the winds, tell him to check his gear, and then clear him to land. For example, check wheels down, wind calm, clear to land. Well, in this situation, I had the Learjet. He was still 10 miles out. I thought, well, you know what, the Cessna is going to beat him to the runway, so I'm going to go ahead and clear the Cessna and forego my base call. So I did. I told the Cessna, check wheels down, wind calm, clear to land, and he was still a good 2 miles out before he ever got to the base. Well, one thing I did not take into account and here's one of those human factors things for you, tailwind with him, maybe twin knot tailwind, something like that. So the Cessna is getting to base much quicker. He's getting to the runway much quicker than the Learjet. Well, I had totally lost sight of this fact. I turned my attention to the Learjet that's now 7-mile final, doing approximately 140 knots. I give him the winds, check wheels down, wind, I'm guessing it was probably 320 at 15 or 20 or whatever. Clear for the option. I had totally forgotten about the Cessna. Well, the Cessna had already been cleared. The Cessna pilot, this was a human factors mishap prevention cue he could have used at the time, and this is something I share with my pilots out there, is that he could have been listening. If he was listening to the radio better, he would have heard me clear that Learjet. He should have keyed up the microphone and asked, quizzed me, said, hey, what's going on? Am I cleared? Where's this? Or at least asked, where's this traffic? If he would have said that, that would have caused me to reassess the situation and maybe made a different call. Not to put it off on him, it was all my fault. But again, just trying to give you an example of good situational awareness to use in your cockpit. Keep your ears open. Keep them listening to what you're hearing out there, because it could impact. And do not hesitate to speak up. If you don't get a good warm feeling about something that you're experiencing there, if the sequencing doesn't feel right to you, by all means speak up. The controller could have made a mistake. Any rate, I cleared the Learjet, forgot about the Cessna. A couple minutes later, a few seconds later, I hear the Learjet pilot say, hey, Tower, what's this guy doing out here off my left wing? Because I turned my attention back to him, and sure enough, it looked like this Cessna and this small little Learjet were flying side by side in formation. I was immediately pulled out of position and sent down to the chief controller's office. The tapes had to be pulled. Everything in air traffic control was recorded. There was an investigation. We had to meet with the safety officer, with the pilots. It was a very traumatic situation. Even though the planes never got close, I still had to go through that entire investigation process, and that certainly stayed with me forever.
In part 4 of the interview with Jett Green, you will hear him talking about a catastrophic accident and how human factors and CRM training was introduced to address failing